What's the difference between recombination and newness, and does one lead to the other necessarily? Let's find out. Track 3 from We Are Connected. Again, like the previous 2 chapters, I'm not going to play the full track. If you want to hear the full track to get a little bit more out of this video, you can go hear it on arttrackschronicle.com. This track, like the second track, opens with a fairly fragmented melody, which sounds like this. Slightly motivic, gets one idea, gets repeated, a lot of space. However, unlike the previous track, which had a guitar line that went underneath it that felt almost like figured bass we were talking about, this has just a sound effect that subtly hints at a bass line. It sounds like this. I think it's a very cool sound. I ran the MS-20 through this particle processor. I love this box. I think it's from the late 90s, maybe. In any case, we get that melody, but then we get the first new thing of all of the tracks that we've had so far in We Are Connected. A real drum set, a real drum kit, instead of a DFAM or some other item to create the sense of rhythm. So let me lead into it so you can hear when the kit comes in. So the kit comes in, which is itself new in terms of sound dynamics for the tracks so far in We Are Connected, but the kit also ushers in something else that's quite new so far for these tracks. One of my favorite composers is Shostakovich, and one thing I love about his music is even if it's for full orchestra, there's really only 3 things happening at once. It might be orchestrated that's being doubled or being passed around things, but if you really look at the content, there's only ever 3 really different lines happening. And I love that because he can do so much with so little. When the drums come in, surrounding sounds go away, and all we're left with is really this idea of very few things happening. You have the drum part, you have the MS-20 playing a synth bass part, and then you have the main cello melody that is now being harmonized as little answers after certain things happen. Then that ushers in the next new thing, and I'm just going to play it on its own. We get the semblance of an orchestra for the first time in the tracks. I'm playing the violin parts, I just layered 4 versions of it. Then I'm playing the viola part, also layering 4 versions. But listen how that can absolutely change the quality of the track just by adding this orchestra. Here's this section of music without the orchestra. Now let's add the orchestra in. It adds depth, it adds interest, rhythmic interest, tonal interest, all of these things. And as it goes and We Are Connected, these orchestral layers become more and more prominent. Along with the orchestra, we finally move away from this upbeat feel into almost a double time feel. So obviously the drum can take care of that double time feel on its own, but my preference is to also mirror that in the orchestration. In this new section, the cello line is again similar to the end of the first 2 tracks, these very long, timeless sense of melodies. Also happening at the same time is you get this in the string parts or the orchestra. So just even in the orchestration, we can help show this. My point is that the combination of all these things create a complete change in feel that's not being driven necessarily by just the drums, which I frankly really like that idea. Now, the last new thing in this track is a compositional technique that I am very, very fond of. If you remember, or if you recall, the opening melody is this. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now at the end we arrive and we get the same melody, but it's truncated in places. So that's already shortened. Shortened again. So we essentially have reused this melody from the opening, but presented it in a very different way in the cello part. But let me play for you what's happening in the other parts right here with the orchestra, the strings, the violins, and the violas, and with the organ or the synth bass. See if you recognize this. It's the exact same melody, but stretched way out. And that's going to go against the same melody in the cello parts that are actually truncated. And I love this dichotomy or this juxtaposition of almost experiencing time in different ways. And I thought that was a perfect idea to match the idea of what an AI and what a human, how they might perceive time or perceive even what's happening. Or if you can even use the word perceive for something like AI. But in any case, let's put those two together so you can hear the affect that it creates. Here's the opening one where it's just in its own time in the cello. And here's a version where we have the two different timed versions at the same time. And those two lines combined with a drum part that feels like it's almost kind of doing its own thing, even though some accents are lining up with the orchestra, creates a sense of drive, a sense of direction, and a little confusion at the same time, where you can follow things, and it's still just three things happening. Two of them are the same melody. And for me, this is an example of exploration of newness, or rather maybe a new style of an evolved sense of expression. Because again, this is a technique that gets used. You can find it in Bach all the time. So this is not a new technique, but it's taking the same concept and applying it to this in this application. If you haven't heard track 3 in its entirety, hop on over to Art Tracks Chronicle, read the story. You can see the sound video that tells the story in even a third way. I believe there's even narration on there. And remember, every time you visit Art Tracks Chronicle, you're supporting the artists that are making this story come to life, and all of us that are exploring new ways and alternatives to the modern music industry. That includes streaming and over-financialization and remaking things that are known to work, which is the reason for remaking them rather than exploring. Come explore with us. Thanks for tuning in.